Y'all can look so much alike.
Oh, I was
That
like,
her
that's so
face
funny.
recognition
am I in the frame?
unlocks her phone.
Wow.
I can't see because you
But I
moved.
mean-
But yeah, you're in.
Okay, you can see that behind
Yes,
me?
you can see everything.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I had an interesting morning. I had to do the children's Shabbat lesson, and I was supposed to do David and Goliath. And then some interesting things could possibly be in the future, so I held off on doing the lesson because I have a very interesting animation project that could probably happen. So I held off so I could wait on that. So I did Why Not Christmas for children.
Okay.
So this morning I was like, okay, how am I going to do this to where it's short and that it doesn't freak them completely out? And so if you have, oh yeah, you can press that one. So if you have children, it's called Why Not Christmas, and it's Children's Shabbat. And all the Shabbat videos, I'm going to put them on one playlist, hopefully sometime this week. Hopefully that's something that I can probably delegate to someone sometime. So they're all in one space, so everybody can watch them. So this week, this was one chapter where, you know, sometimes the story just goes like streamlined all the way through and you can kind of just follow it along. It's kind of like that, but I'm going to do the same thing I did last week, only this week my screen works. And I can give you these Hebrew words, because I'm going to give you those Hebrew words first so we can understand the function behind why them asking what they asked in this passage was such a big deal. I did. One of the things today I was meditating on this, and I thought it was so interesting that Yah's providential care and what he did with Samuel for pretty much his whole life. Going back to chapter 1, when Yah had Samuel stay in the temple, it's not normal for prophets to live in the temple. So he gets a prophet and a judge who also understood the inner workings and was trained under a priest, a high priest, because we read a few weeks ago, the ark comes up, gone because of battle. So that kind of ran through my head today, and I wanted to throw that out there just in case you wanted to ponder on that. So in chapter 8, I'm going to give you the Hebrew words first, and then we're going to go into the actual lesson. Well, the kind of depend, yeah. I think there's one on the desk too. I don't know where it is. Oh, there's a pencil. I don't know if people have
That'll work.
pencils anymore.
That'll
Here's
work.
a,
I have too many.
okay.
Yeah.
Now she's gonna come back with like 30 pencils. There's just a few of us.
I'll do my pen back.
So I'll tell you the 3 words. We're gonna look at the word for what a king is, so we can get the function of what that looks like and why a king in Israel was. Yah being king was important. I shouldn't say king in Israel. So we're gonna look at what a king is based upon the Hebrew language. What a judge was. Told you. 30 pins.
It's good. We're good.
Oh, we're good, yeah.
We're good.
But if she runs out at some time, because she's gonna write so much, I'm sure those 17 other things you have will be. Okay. What a judge is. What a judge in Israel is. We've seen judges throughout the history of our people, but we're gonna actually look at what a judge is and what Samuel did, and then why the people asking for a king to judge them was such a big issue. Okay, and then I'm going to give you a couple of other words for they have forgotten me and they have refused me. Because we would say, oh, I've never forgotten Yah, I've never refused Yah, but unless you know what that looks like, then you may repeat that same behavior again, because our people were repeat offenders. All right, so the word for king in Hebrew is the word malach. And it's spelled mem, and I'll write it how you would see it if you were reading it in a book, and then I'll write it how you would see it if you don't know Hebrew at all and you know word pictures. So mem, lamet, and that's a kaf sofit. You don't have to know what that is because I'm going to write it differently right now. For those who are online, pause it, and you can go back and see that. Why am I writing backwards? So mem is water. Lamet is a shepherd's staff. And kaf is the palm of the hand. We did this thing at Sukkot this year, and I'll kind of do it briefly with this, where I do this little thing called You Already Know Hebrew. And what it does is it takes your existing knowledge and pairs it with the Hebrew language. And most people of color have existing Hebraic knowledge, you just don't know you have it. For instance, we do for cough, I'll use that one, like the palm of your hand. Palm of the hand is used to bless, right? It's also used to turn ahead. So I don't know if other people do it. I don't have a lot of experience with watching other people raise their kids. But when your kid is walking in front of you and they're going a different way, there's this tendency to just like turn their head, look in a different direction. You just, and it's not anything that's like rough or you're not trying to hurt them, but it's just like, no, we're not going that way. That is the picture of this idea of the cough. So there are existing things in the culture. So mem, right? Everybody has previous experience with water. So you don't have to know Hebrew to know what water is. All of the Hebrew language is based in observational evidence. It's things you can see, touch, taste, smell, feel, hear. It's experience. So mem is water, chaos, motion. You know that water's in motion. You've seen water move. So that's not something that's tricky for anyone. Lamed, if you haven't seen a shepherd staff, you have Google. You can Google a shepherd and see how shepherds use their shepherd staff. So you can use that imagery. And then I gave you the kaf, which is the palm of the hand. So the picture of a king, very simply, is literally one who rules or walks amongst the people. Very simple. So in the Hebraic mindset, in their mind, a king was one who physically moved and walked among the people. In a European mind or in a Western mind, a king is somebody who sits on a tower, who has all this authority, and they're above the people. Hebraically, a king is amongst the people. So a king is somebody you can see, touch, feel, experience, interact with. It's not somebody in an ivory tower. So when we're going through, especially once we get a king in this book, we need to keep that in mind with the interaction of the people. People knew each other. They talked to each other. They were cousins. They were family. There was a lot of them, but people knew who was in charge, who was in control. And that's something that we should keep in mind. The word for king has a positive and a negative charge because you could have a king who is righteous, who follows Yah, and yet you could have a king that's wicked that doesn't follow Yah, right? The word also has that in it. You could have a king that is lak, that means to like walk, it's a root word, walking with Yah, or you can have a king that's swayed by the other nations or pagan deities. You'll also see that. All right, so one of the issues that comes up in this passage that we're going to go over is that the people ask for a king. And it's such an issue because Yah was supposed to be their king. And that had been established long before there was ever a king mentality. The nations pretty much did what Yah told them not to do in Deuteronomy chapter 12. And they started our nation started looking at other nations and wanting what they had to look like that. It's human nature on a very simple basis. But what happened is Yah had already established a pattern for how things are supposed to look. Okay? We'll get back to that when we go through the story. All right, the next word is the word for judge. The word for judge is shaphat. So Samuel was a judge over Israel. Shin, pei, tet. Shin is 2 teeth. I can draw this one together. So those are teeth. Pei is a mouth. And tet is like basket, snake, but it means to surround. So the idea of a judge, very simply, is one who handles disputes or judges between two things. So the shin, the teeth, right, means to separate. The pei is the mouth. So it's like them speaking and separating and containing things. Literally just like a judge. So it's very functional in that sense. So they would speak and then they would say, okay, what is this issue? This is the issue. And they were supposed to judge righteously to make sure that it ended up fair, equitable. Because sometimes equal is not fair, but equity is fair. And Yah deals always in equity and not equality. For people who don't know who equity is, I'll give you an example. Equity is like a picture of a person standing at a fence. And this person's tall enough and they can see over the fence. But then everybody else is just as high as that person, but they're shorter so they can't see over. Equity is allowing everybody to be at the same level no matter what it's required for that person to be at that level. So it may be, if I'm short, if I have to be 7 feet to be over the fence, I may need 2 extra feet Where a person who's 6 feet may need 1 extra foot, but it's equitable. It makes it so it's the same, not always equal. Okay, so that is what the judge was supposed to do in Israel. So when you see Deborah and you see these other people judging, they were making sure that what was happening in Israel was equitable. Just like land distribution was based upon the amount of people, not necessarily based upon how much better you were or how less you were. So Benjamin got a little bit of land, or their lot was with somebody else. It was equitable based upon the amount of people that were there. And judges were supposed to make sure that stayed the same. When there were disputes amongst the people, it was equitable. One of the most popular ones is Solomon, the one with the baby, right? This woman has a baby, and her baby dies, steals the other lady's baby. They come to the king. He's like, okay, whose baby is it? She's like, it's my baby. It's my baby. We all know the story. So he's like, cut the baby in half. And there was a, hey, let me see that shirt. No.
Let me tell you where I got it.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to just have you model that. Not right now, but at the end, because I like that. I like how it came out. We just got started, so you're not at all. No, you're good. We were just dealing with judgment in Israel and how judgment in Israel is supposed to be equitable. And you were going over that. And so the whole purpose was to create order and harmony. As a unit, as a village, no matter how many people, we're supposed to live together in order and in harmony. And it can't exist if things are not done equitably. Is that even a word?
It is not.
Okay. Equitable. All right. And we'll get to these other two as we get to the lesson. All right. So just some background. So it kind of jumps like years ahead of time. And that's interesting with scripture. Sometimes you will get, it was just the same until this point, for the most part. Right? So when we get to chapter 8, Samuel's old now. Like he was young, he was serving, now he's old. Okay? And we know the ark is still not in the tabernacle. These are things that are still consistent with what's going on. And Samuel's gonna have some kids. And it's interesting, we'll touch it for a second, but it's not much to touch because I've looked high and low. Samuel has 2 kids. We don't know who his wife is. We don't remember him getting married. It was just like it happened. So it must have not been, because sometimes when the children are wicked, depending, and in this case, we'll see, you either get the parents named because of the mother named because of the greatness of the wickedness, or you don't get anything because of the greatness of the wickedness. Like you don't even get an honorable mention. Like we don't even want to. How are you married to Samuel and then
Raised some heathens. Right.
Like, all right. So 1 Samuel chapter 8 verse 1. And it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. If you don't know anything about judges, we're going to stop right there. Because Yah gives some very, very strict instructions about those who judge Israel. Having judges over Israel is not a negative thing, but how you judge Israel can be positive or negative. Deuteronomy chapter 16, we're going to see how Yah wants judges in Israel to behave. Deuteronomy 16, we're going to start at verse 18. Right. It says, judges and officers shalt thou make thee in all thy gates. So it's a command. Which Yahuwah thy Elohim giveth thee throughout thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment, with equitable judgment. Okay? Verse 19. Thou shalt not wrest judgment, thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift doth both blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous. That which is altogether just shalt thou follow, that thou mayest live and inherit the land which Yahuwah thy Elohim hath given thee. Very simple, right? So, judges don't take bribes, because if you know the judge, and it's so funny because we have that system now. It's a very perverted judicial system, where you have people who have judges in their pockets, lawyers in their pockets. They can go around the system. Nothing is done By the book, it's done based upon a respected person. So depending on who you are, you can get away with certain things. We live in that system, right? But according to Yah, that can't be the system. And the reason why it's so terrible is, like, and we can even see it, is because when judgment is perverted, it causes tension. We live in a society right now where we have huge racial tensions because of perverted judgment. Biblically, it didn't matter who you were. It didn't matter if you were a king. It didn't matter if you were a prophet, if you were a priest. If you break Yah's law, the same judgment was consistent amongst all people. In our system, it's not like that. Depending on what color suit you wear, what fraternity you're a part of, judgment may be differently. And for people, and you can see the tension amongst people, it incites a rage. And so people often wonder amongst communities of color why there's a rage toward, and not warranted all the time, but toward police and toward people who they feel have more privilege than them. It's because the judgment is perverted. If you do it once and you pervert the judgment, then across the board, people are not going to feel safe or protected by that system. If you're a person of color, you've heard people say it. Those laws were not written for you, and they were not.
That's true.
Point blank period. They weren't. You weren't thought of. You were 2/3 of a person. Right. When a lot of the stuff that was written in those laws are written. So when you come to that judicial system, you're not getting equitable treatment. Because it has to be equitable. If you're acting a fool and you get shot, you get shot. That's just what happens. But if the same precautions are not taken with no respected persons all the way across the board, then when people look at that system, they don't trust the system, and then you get anarchy. Where people then are like, forget the system, I will govern myself. And by me governing myself, it could be to the detriment of you and you and me and everyone else, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, that's the very thing that Yah was trying to avoid. If Yah's system doesn't work, then guess what? People don't trust Yah. It's not human nature to just say, well, some of us, but it's not the natural human nature to say, well, that is how that looks on this end. But for me, it's just different. There's some of us who are very, very diplomatic like that. I think I'm kind of diplomatic like that, where I don't just lump everybody into the same category. But for some people, if it didn't work for you, it's not going to work for me. And that's how it works. So people will have an issue trusting Yah if that judgment is not equal all the way across the board for everybody. Okay. So Yah tells the children of Israel, judge righteously. Have judges, but make sure that you're judging righteously. All right. So let's go back to 1 Samuel. And it says, it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Yoel, and the name of his second, Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba. So remember, in certain regions, they were not the only judges in Israel, but they were in Beersheba. Geographically, Beersheba is like 2.5 hours driving distance from Jerusalem, or from, at that time, Salem. So it's not, it's a spread out distance. And it says, and his sons, verse 3, walked not in his ways, but turned aside after lucre and took bribes and perverted judgment. Look how quickly you can go from somebody walking in the ways of Yah to the next generation quickly just falling off. That is such a fear, I think, in these days where you have people who are trying to turn to Torah, and it's so easy for people just to fall off. You know Torah. It's explicit. They knew Deuteronomy, right? That's like the last words Moshe gave before they went into the promised land. If you forgot, you don't remember anything else, you're going to remember those, right? And immediately you have a father, parents who walked righteously, and then you have Samuel who walks righteously, and then his children fall completely off. It wasn't like they were removed from Samuel. It wasn't like it was like, oh, that was my grandfather and he was doing. No, you lived in the house with a person that served Yah wholeheartedly their whole life, and then that very next generation diverted. And he says, verse 4, then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel unto Ramah, and said unto him, behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations. So they were just like, look, the perverted judgment starting with Eli's sons. And then now we're tired. You're telling us Yah's supposed to work. And it seems to be working for you. But as far as all of us, we don't trust your system. We don't like how you're doing it. So make us a king like all the other nations, because at least when they have a king, we can see their king and we can go directly to the king, and we don't have to keep going through you and your sons and these people to get to Yah, because clearly we don't even know if you have a relationship with Yah at all. That's pretty much what they were saying. Give us somebody we can see and go directly to. And it says, verse 6, but the thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king to judge us. And Samuel prayed unto Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said unto Samuel, hearken unto the voice of the people and all that they say unto thee. For they have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I shall not reign over them.
Wow.
That part was interesting, because the human part of me is like, well, no, they weren't rejecting Yah. They were saying every time it comes time for this role as judge or priest to get passed down, it gets messed up, right? So you would think that they should naturally be able to have a concern. Quite naturally, right? But the issue is, it wasn't that they just wanted a king. They didn't say, yeah, we want to talk directly to you, because if you don't remember, Yah had it set up to talk directly to his people. They asked for a go-between.
Right.
They said, Moshe, this is too much.
Yeah.
You talk to him. Whatever he tells you, we're going to listen to.
Wow.
You're the one that set up this system in the first place. If it was up to me, I would have talked directly to you. But you didn't want to hear from me. Right? So then they come along again and they're like, give us a go-between. Now we don't want to hear from your prophets or your judges. We want to hear from a king. Why? Because that negative side, a king, and Yah's going to explain this when he explains to Samuel, his judgment can also be perverted. Because when you're dealing with a man who's now not a prophet, not a priest, not a judge, the king in this sense, and we'll learn it more in chapter 9 and 10, is literally a captain over Yah's army. Yah's still the judge. He's like, you can call him a king if you want to, but really he's a figurehead in the system. It's like kind of like our president. Right? Do you think that I have a charger. You think that the president runs things, but no. There are people who run things, and he is the mouthpiece or the representative. Now this is this. The representative for what the people think, what the people want to do. Aaron is a really good example of that. Aaron's story is probably one of the funniest peer pressure stories to me ever. Because Aaron, right, he's down. Remember, Moshe is up on the mountain, and he comes down. He hears them having this like orgy party thing, and Moses is like, "What the? You know what happened here?" And he was like, "Well, you know, the people, they thought you died, and they were like, make us an idol. So they brought all this gold, and then this is literally how he said it. This is funny." He goes, I just threw the gold into the fire, and out came the gold. It's like, but literally, if you read the story, it says, and then Aaron fashioned a golden calf. But when he talked to Moses, he was like, it was the spirit was moving so much. I took a hunk of gold and threw it in the calf, popped out, and then they started worshiping it. It's not the case, but judgment, even to Yah's elect, can be perverted with the pressure of the people. And so the people wanted somebody they could pressure. You can't pressure Yah. Right. Yah does what he does the way he does it because he's perfect and he's just. He's like, I'm perfectly just. Why would you even need another judge? Right? The proper response would have been, we need to go back on what our parents said, and we need to be able to talk to Yah face to face. We want that relationship back. But if your mindset is not to walk with Yah, then you don't want a face-to-face relationship with Yah, because a face-to-face relationship is going to bring death. Man can't see Yah face-to-face, especially not in his current state. So if Yah is going to come and speak, you have to put yourself in a position to be right. That's not what they wanted to do. They're like, we're not going to get right. So give us someone else besides you. All right, so he says, they have not rejected you, they have rejected me. What does it look like then to reject Yah? The word is the Hebrew word azab or azab, and it's ayin, zayin, bet. It's the I, which means to see or experience. Zayin, which is a plow or a weapon or to cut off. And Bet, which is a house. So the idea of this and it's funny, it's not even connected to the color, but it's connected to harvesting or grain, right? Hello. And so it literally has to do with the food of the house, like the sickle that goes to the ground, harvest the food for the house. And it literally means to leave the food of the house. To leave the food of the house. It means to leave or to go away or to neglect something. So to reject Yah means that Yah is putting this before you. Here's your meal. Here's my word. And I'm saying, I see it. And I'm sure it's good, but I want this. I want something else. So the food is, obviously in an ancient Hebraic mindset, it sustains you. Mm-hmm. It keeps you alive. There's no such thing as bad food. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. If it's bad, it's not food. That's why he says, these things shall be food for you. Mm-hmm. Anything that was not food for you was not food. It was something else. It was food for someone else or something else. When it came to you, food was good. Food had a positive connotation attached to it. So if there was food of the house, it was based upon your diet. Mm-hmm. It was in season, because Hebrews ate in season. They don't eat like we eat now. You get strawberries in the wintertime. Didn't happen. You ate in season. It was connected to the lifestyle of everybody around you. So to reject the food of the house means to go after something that wasn't for you. The person that's feeding you is tailor making your meal and what you need specifically for you. And you know it. It's not like you don't know. You're like, okay, your diet, you need 30 grams of protein and 15 grams of this, and here's your meal macroed out for you, for your body. You're like, nah, I'll take cotton candy, thanks. But pretty much. Mm-hmm. So he's saying they haven't rejected you. They're rejecting me. So at the end of the day, sometimes we do get that feeling of like when somebody rejects this truth, they're rejecting me. They're rejecting Yah. And that makes it such a higher level of rejection because it's not about you. People can say it all day long. Well, I just didn't like the person that was saying it to me. If somebody made me a $5,000 meal and it was packaged specifically for me, if you've been on a plane that had kosher meals, they come with like all these extra wrappings, right? I don't care who hands it to me, right? I'm gonna eat it because it was packaged. Nobody's touched it. It's mine. Nobody else can open it. So Yah sometimes sends our hand packaged meals probably through people that we don't want it from. But you're gonna reject the meal because of the person? No, Yah's like, it's not them. Because he could have said, you know what, your sons are a hot mess. You're right. They're right. No, he said, no. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. They're saying, Samuel, like, look at your sons. How can we listen to you? They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. So verse 8 says, according to all the words which they have done since the day that I brought them out of Egypt, even unto this day, wherewith they have forsaken me and served other elves, so do they also unto thee. He was like, this is nothing new. Like, he's like, I used to have this thing with my mom about my sister. She's not here to defend herself, so you can defend her if you want. But mom used to be like, you need to watch your siblings. Not just her, but all of them, but mainly her. And I used to tell her, I'm like, they're not even scared of you. You gonna leave me here with these kids. They're terrible. Watch your brother and sister. I'd be like, no, absolutely not. They don't listen. She was like, when I was young, my sister listened to me. I was like, your sister wasn't like these kids. They don't listen. Right? So I would say, I said, if a person will not fear their parent, there's no way they're going to fear Yah. Right? So Yah was telling me, he's like, dude, they don't even fear me. So your issue is lower than my issue. They're not going to respect you. They're going to reject you. If they've rejected me, you can just expect it. Mashiach said the same exact thing. He was like, if you think they did this to me and I don't have any negative in me, imagine what they're going to do to you. Mm-hmm. Just be prepared for it. Yeah. That same exact picture, right? Mm-hmm. So, verse 9 says, now therefore hearken unto their voice, howbeit, yet protest, solemnly unto them, and show them the manner of king that shall reign over them. The mercy of the Father is just beyond me. He's like, give them what they want, but as you're giving it to them, let them know what this is going to do. He could have just said, have it. But he's like, no, I'm going to warn you first. That's his care. I'm going to give you what you want, but let me tell you what you're asking for is going to, what kind of calamity that's going to cause you. The reason why it's such a big deal, and the reason why rejecting Yah as king is such a huge deal, is because there are these things called motifs or patterns in Scripture. And they're carried out from beginning to end. And when you reject the pattern, Yah doesn't change the pattern. He keeps the pattern. He just has to reject you and your way. You can't be the representative for what his pattern is. So now, if you're not following my pattern, I'm not your El. I'm not your God. Because if I still stay in communion with you as you go dark or you go twisted, then it perverts how people see me. And everything I do is for my name's sake. Okay? I'm going to give you the verses, and we're going to actually read them all, about how Yah talks about how he's supposed to be to us as our king. And then you'll see the gravity of the rejection. There's one thing I want to point out before we go there, and it's Exodus chapter 20, verse 3.
Say that again.
Exodus chapter 20 and 3, verse 3. It says, thou shalt have no other gods, Els, before me. In the Western mind, how we think, because we think sequential, chronologically, we think ordinally, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? The Hebraic mind doesn't think like that. The Hebraic mind thinks holistically, cyclically, right? It thinks in that manner. So in the Western mind, when you tell people, like in this season, you can't celebrate Christmas because it's attached to a pagan holiday, right? And there's other gods attached to that. But they're like, but first, it's about Jesus, right? And then it's about Christmas. Ordinally, I'm correct because I'm putting Jesus is the reason for the season on all my posts. But then I'm also going to have a tree and celebrate all the paganism with it. Yeah. But Jesus is first, right?
I'm doing this.
Because the Western mind thinks in that order.
Because he died and gave me liberty.
Yeah. Yah doesn't think like that at all. When Yah says, thou shalt have no other gods before me, this is how Yah sees it. You don't bring anybody in front of my face, period. Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not in order. Not me first and everything else after. I don't want to see it at all. Right. And with Yah being omnipresent, right? There's never a time where he's not going to see it. So then there's never a time that you can do it. It's simple. The way you think, though, will drive how you justify or how you judge yourself. Because most people have judged themselves and said, Christmas is not before my relationship with God. And for most of them, I can believe them, I guess. It's like you only do it once a year, so maybe not, right? Like it's, I mean, in the scheme of things, in an ordinal Western thinking mind, you're right. You only cheat once a year. All the rest of the year, you're a good wife. We're going to give you a pass. One day a year, you go all out. You go whoring. But 364 days out of the year, you are Susie Homemaker. Who wouldn't give you a pass, right? Yeah, it doesn't work like that. It's like, no. If you did it once, you'll do it again. And you do it every year. You're consistent. Right? So he's like, don't do that before me. I should never see it. It's not in that sense. So keeping that in mind, that idea of rejecting Yah is wanting to have something that buffers how Yah sees or walks amongst my sin. If Yah's walking amongst the people like we're going to read, then how can he not see all the things that people are doing? We don't want you to walk among us. It's like that, you know, when you're, well, we didn't have this liberty. I didn't have a door on my room. But Mom took the whole door.
Yeah.
They I eventually, when I got to high school, got to put up like a little like
A curtain.
little but it was not like
They wanted privacy.
Yes, my mom was like,
You don't pay any
my
bills.
house,
No,
no,
no
like
bills.
none of that.
Don't be
That's
slamming
so-
doors in your face. Kick the door off.
Wrong, like no. Yeah, I was just wanting to keep her. Yeah. Anyways.
See?
Anyways. She's like,
Well,
what?
you're not the
Because this.
Well, see.
So my mom had this thing where I'm like, it's my room. If I leave home and my room is a mess, it's my room. I can live in it. She's like, your room is in my house.
Exactly.
So how your room looks is a reflection of this whole house. You don't get to do it. So when I lost my door.
You lost her door.
Yeah, I know. I guess I didn't fold up my clothes right, or I left. My mom was like, she was extreme. And not to say that Yah is crazy like my mom, but Yah does operate in these kinds of extremes where if you don't do it my way, then you might as well have not done it all. And I'm going to make you do it all over. So I could like leave some stuff laying out. And she was like, you know what? I would come home and she would dump all the drawers out and would be like, now do it all. Like, you clearly wanted to clean your whole room since you didn't want to just put this little bit of stuff away. And I'd be like, what kind of logic is that?
Hey.
This is real. This is real life. Where Yah's not a psychopath, but
Are you saying
now my mom's not either. But
It's just like this lady.
but with Yah, it's all or nothing.
Mhm.
You don't get to halfway. Sometimes,
Do it.
yeah, halfway. You don't get to halfway do anything.
Mhm.
He wants consistency. So now my mom, on the other hand, she wasn't like my grandmother. It's a whole nother level. Well, my mom just follow my rules. Make sure your clothes not hanging out your drawers. Make sure your grandmother's different story. So Yah is like, I can train you. I can work with you being obedient. I can't work with you just blatantly disrespecting my system, right? But in the same sense, she was there. Do you want to have only 2 pair of clothes? And I'd be like, and that's happened to me too.
Yeah.
She took all my clothes out of my room and left me 2 pair of pants and 2 shirts. And she was like, and this is all you can wear. And all I said was I didn't have nothing
I
to
don't have no
wear.
clothes to wear. And you got a closet full of clothes.
But that same exact thing where
Now you really bad though.
Yah will bring it down to a bare minimum, like he's done with his people in the sense where he said, you don't want to do it my way, so I'm going to warn you ahead of time. If you keep doing this like this, I'm going to strip everything away.
Yeah.
And this is what this is going to look like, and this is how our interaction is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can do it my way, and then there's blessing with that. There's room for growth. There's room for me to correct without having to go to these extreme measures. But it comes with humility. Okay, so let's look at this king and how Yah saw himself to Israel, but how they didn't see him, how they didn't see him. So Exodus 25:8. I'm gonna read them off, and then everybody just kind of grab one. I'll grab the last one. I'll grab the first one. Okay, I'll grab Exodus 25:8. The next one is Exodus 29:45. And then Leviticus 26:11. 1 Kings 6:13, I think. We'll see when we get there. And I'll do the last 3. Okay, so Exodus 25:8 says, "And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them." So Yah's plan in Exodus 25:8 was for him to dwell among his people. We looked at in the beginning what a king looks like. The king has to dwell among the people. That's why the idea of a Messiah coming in the flesh and tabernacling is a picture that was laid out way before. As a person, and I think I've talked about this a lot in my videos, but when I came to Torah, I had a really big problem with the Christian duality between God and Jesus. It didn't line up. I was like, I'm not reading the New Testament anymore. I can't do it. I understand it. This makes no sense. This is all off. It's off. This must be something that was made up at some other time. And it took me a really long time It wasn't something that I talked about often because it was like, I wasn't like, I'm not messianic, but I was just like, if this is what they were doing and this thing doesn't add up. And it was literally in some of these passages that we're going to go over today that showed me that the plan had always been that from the beginning. And that how the plan played out was probably what I didn't understand. But was that the plan? Absolutely yes. Yeah. And so it was always the plan of Yah to tabernacle amongst his people. That's why when you get to John, they said, and the word became flesh and tabernacle, everybody's mind was supposed to go, that's him. Point blank period. It wasn't supposed to be something we were supposed to have to climb leaps and hurdles and make doctrines about, and it was supposed to be streamlined. It was supposed to make sense. Yahuwah is one, Deuteronomy 4. And then you get here and he's one, and now he's tabernacling in the flesh, but he's always dwelled amongst his people as their king. We don't have a different king. Same king. Right. Maybe different earth suit. Same king. Form of a tabernacle. Form of a temple. Form of man. Same thing. But how Yah chose to express and interact with man just looks differently. Does that make sense? Okay. Exodus 29 and 45.
And I will dwell among the children of Israel, and I will be their Elohim.
Right? So I'm going to dwell among them, which literally means I'm going to be their king, and I'm going to be their God. You're not going to have a different king and a different God. Same king, same God. Okay? Leviticus 26 and 11.
And I will set my tabernacle among you, and my soul shall not abhor you.
Okay, so, and the word became flesh and tabernacle. Here it is again. Just a shameless plug. I talked about the children's lesson today. I used to get this all the time in Christianity. When was Jesus born? And they'd be like, well, we don't exactly know. If he was not born during Feast of Tabernacles, he's not Messiah. Point blank period. In the story. Has to be. It's attached to the literal idea of dwelling amongst the people. That is the whole Feast of Tabernacle. It's the only feast that's kept throughout eternity, that's established when Yah is permanently dwelling amongst the people. That's when he's born. Tabernacles. The word became flesh and tabernacle during tabernacles amongst us. It's also the only feast that is a 7-day feast plus one. Patterns, right? If it was just a 7-day feast, right, then on the 8th day, the Mashiach would have been circumcised within that feast period. It's a 7-day feast plus one, because on the 7th day of that, on the 8th day of that feast, that would have been the day that the Messiah was circumcised. Right. I never understood that, because there's no feast that are like, it's 7 plus 1. It's set up like that. On purpose, just for that feast. So that everything is done according to scripture within that feast. It's absolutely foolproof and brilliant because he was setting up a physical tabernacle amongst man, but every part of that tabernacle had to be obedient. It had to happen exactly the way it happened so that I hate to use this word, but that avatar could house Yah's Ruach. And walk amongst men. It's like, it's a veil. Just like the tabernacle. I mean, the tabernacle had the Holy of Holies, veil, Mashiach, born a certain way, this way, so that it could veil the glory of Yah, so that Yah could walk amongst the people and not completely implode the system. That makes sense? But he could put himself within that avatar, if you will, without measure. It's brilliant. Okay, 1 Kings, we're trying it out, 6 and 13.
And I will dwell among the children of Israel, and will not forsake my people Israel.
Okay. So,
What's that 1 Kings
6:13. So this makes for a good question. Did the people know this? Because it's one thing for us to sit back and theologically pick them apart, right? Outside of being in that present time. Is this something that they also knew in their time period? Because that was also a question I had when I went through that phase. Did the people expect to have a king or a El that walked among them? Or was that something, like they said, which was progressive revelation? Is that something that they learned over time? Or was it something that they knew from the beginning? Joshua 22 and 31. Joshua 22:31 says, And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, said unto the children of Reuben, and to the children of Gad, and to the children of Manasseh, This day we perceive that Yahuwah is among us. Because ye have not committed this trespass against Yahuwah, now you have delivered the children of Israel out of the hand of Yahuwah.
Wow.
Did they know or did they not know?
They knew.
They knew. So, the tragedy of the error that our people makes, that they make in here, and that we still continue to make, is that it's done with with knowledge. It's not something that's done in foolishness. Now, us being removed, we don't have a perfect understanding of language. We're not raised in Torah. Your whole life is Torah. Your system is right in front of you. They knew. There was no having to say, okay, you know that Mem, Lamed, and Kaf Sofit means the king, and he's supposed to walk among you. So if you're calling somebody a king, this would no. They expected that. They knew that words meant things, and they knew that it carried with it action. They knew. They knew what they were asking for. And that's why when Yah gave them what they were asking for, he was like, I know you know what you're asking for, but let me tell you what that's going to be like. Okay? Last one, Revelation. I'm just going to go from the beginning to the end because it's always important to show that everything is streamlined and there's nothing new in the New Testament. Revelation chapter 21, verse 3. He doesn't change his plan, by the way. We've just walked through pretty much, not every verse, but in every major section of time. Revelation 21, verse 3, And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of Yah is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and Elohim himself shall be with them and be their Elohim. He doesn't change his plan.
I don't.
So, even after this, just in case you never make it to the end of this book and this is your last day on the planet, just know. So fatalistic.
Kind of
That, just a little,
she got it from. No.
that he doesn't change his plan. So if you're reading in Samuel, like, okay, well, I'm going to get to New Testament, he's going to flip the script, and he's not going to be our El, he's going to set up another one. You're going to get to the end of the book, the 21st chapter, and he's going to say, it's me,
Hey.
and again, it's me, and oh, by the way, that was me. Yeah, it keeps it very simple. All right, let's go back to 1 Samuel chapter 8. He's going to give them the rundown. Okay. Verse 11. And he said, This will be the manner of king. Oh, wait. Verse 10. And Samuel told all the words of Yahuwah unto the people that asked of him the king. And he said, This will be the manner of king that shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them for himself, for his chariots, and to be his horsemen, and some shall run before his chariots. And he will appoint him captains over thousands, and captains over 50s, and will set them to ear his ground, and to reap his harvest, and to make his instruments of war, and instruments of his chariots. And he will take your daughters to be confectionaries, and to be cooks, and to be bakers. And he will take your fields, and your vineyards, and your olive yards, even the best of them, and give them to his servants. And he will take the tenth of your seed and of your vineyards, and give them to his officers and to his servants. And he will take your men servants and your maid servants and your goodliest young men and your asses, and put them to his work. And he will take the tenth of your sheep, and ye shall be his servants, and you shall cry out in the day because of your king, which you have chosen, and Yahuwah will not hear you in this day.
Wow.
This is a big deal because so often it's to get out from under service. Because Yah was calling it for what it was. Because you were like, that was so random to me the first 20 times I read it. I read this like 50 times this week, just this one chapter. Because I was like, I don't understand why. That's just what all kings do, right? But what he was saying is, you're saying you want a king because of the perverted judgment. But I'm going to tell you the reason why you want a king. You don't want to serve me. And so all the things you don't want to do for me, guess what? You're going to do them for somebody else. Right back to Deuteronomy chapter 28. It always goes back to those blessings and those curses. It can over and over and over again. Why? I mean, there's Deuteronomy 32 and there's some other places. But specifically there, he's saying, what you won't do for me, you're going to do for somebody else. It's just the nature of
If you don't
things.
serve me, you'll
Right.
serve somebody.
You're going to. Because one, you're sheep. I made you this way on purpose. And so you're going to get in bondage. And with me, I'm fair. I'm a just king. I'm equitable. With these other kings, they don't care. You're going to still give your 10. You're going to still have your sons and daughters serving. And now they'll be fighting unjust wars because now kings make allegiances with other nations and they go out to fight other people. When I was your king, I fought for you. If you go back and read the stories when the people fought, and when Yah fought for the people, and when Yah sent them out to battle, they all came back home. When man sends out to battle, they don't all come back home. Because they don't have the power to make sure that everybody is protected. Yah's fighting. He's like, I'm taking care of it. Now, they're going to, because of fear, they're going to have chariots and horses, and that's where they're going to put their trust, and then they're going to take your men, instead of your young men serving my temple and being loaned to me, they'll be loaned to him for his service. And same thing for your daughters. Everybody will be at his disposal, this king. And he says, and he's going to take the best of everything. And it's all his. He says, oh, your olive yards and your vineyards. And no, you won't ever have enough. With Yah's system, there's always enough for everybody. In this system, there won't be. And so he says in verse 19, nevertheless, the people refused to obey the voice of Samuel, and they said, nay, but we will have a king over us. So he tells you, flat out, this, okay.
Like I say, I want to go to foster care.
Right, like, okay. Yeah, but we still want the king. So they literally decided at that moment when he said, I know what your real intent is. You don't want to serve me. He's like, you're right. We don't.
Wow.
We'd rather serve this earthly king than you. We'd rather give our 10th part to a king that we can see. We'd rather give our 10th part and our sons and our daughters to a king that we know is nothing like you. Yeah, we know you fought battles and blah, blah, blah. But, like, literally, it's the attitude. But we hear everything you're saying, Samuel. It's all good. But this is what we want to do. Shameless plug toward Christmas. When Jeremiah went to the people and he told them, he was like, Jeremiah 10, he's like, you cut down this tree and you're doing all, you're decking it with silver and gold and you're doing all this stuff, you're fasting, it needs to be born, and you're baking these cakes to the Queen of Heaven. You know what the response to Jeremiah was? But she gives us stuff. I swear. They told Jeremiah, I hear what you're saying. The women said, our husbands know we do it. And the Queen of Heaven gives us stuff. The same mindset exists within our people today. It's the same people, just a different time period. You say, look, you're doing X, Y, and Z, and these things are detestable to Yah. And Yah says, if you serve these pagan gods, this is what I'm going to do. And they go, yeah, I hear you, but we're having a good time doing what we're doing right now. You would think that if Yah interjected into a space and told you exactly what was going to happen based upon your decision, you would immediately make a different decision. It's not the case when you're caught up. Like, completely caught up because you're looking and you're thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. Okay, the last word I had was the word for refuse. The word for refuse is the Hebrew word ma'as. Ma'as, like mas, like Espanol. Mas. So it's mem, aleph, Samek. And it's water, terrible drawing. This is supposed to be an ox, and a thorn. Okay, so the simple concrete term is the idea of to dissolve something or to refuse it. So what normally happens when you have an animal come across a thorn or a bush or something that's obstructing its way is it turns away and goes a different direction. That's pretty basic, right? So the idea of refusal is to come across something or to be led to something and to turn your head. So the idea of like you can lead a person to water but you can't make them drink. It's the same idea of that, but it literally in this sense it means to dissolve a relationship based upon refusal. It's very difficult to be in a relationship of any kind where there is refusal to adhere to the base guidelines of whatever that relationship is. Right? So you have people often who say, we don't have to obey the law. Cool. You don't. It's a choice in a sense. But at the same time, when you ask them about their spouse, they go, oh no, you need to obey the laws that we have agreed on between you and me. We have vows. You need to keep those. But that's law. You don't have to be a law. You just say, Jesus, please forgive me every time I do something to you, and it should go over just fine. It won't. It will ruin a relationship if we operated in our basic human relationships like that, right? Refusal to be in covenant and to do the things that we've agreed upon. To not have things we've agreed upon would be terrible, but to refuse to do those things is a pretty much saying, I don't want to be with you. I don't care how much a person verbally says, but I really love you. I really want to be with you, but I really do. But they are refusing to do any of the things that are necessary to keep you in communion.
Right.
Then they don't want to be with you.
Right.
It's like it's cut and dry in a sense, but Hebrews kind of like that. It's the same thing with Yah. He says, "You have refused me." And it completely dissolved our relationship. There's no need for me to plead with you at this point because you flat out told me you're not going to do anything and you don't want anything to do with my way. We don't have to write that down. It's done. It's over. So he's like, give them who they want. Because to Yah, remember, a relationship, our relationship with him is like a marriage, it's a covenant.
Right.
So you're saying you want somebody else. You've pretty much just walked into your house and told your husband, I want to be with somebody else. This is what I want to look like, and I want you to give them to me. I want you to be okay with it. And I want you to sit back and let me do what I want to do. And so then the person turns around and says, okay, but when you get him, he's going to do, I know exactly the person you're talking about. And you go, okay, I hear you. Give him to me anyways. And he goes, sure. Wow. That's exactly what that looks like. He's like, they're refusing. You've dissolved it. You said, I don't want anything to do with you. Let this go. This is the direction I'm going. So, I'm reading verse 19 again. Nevertheless, the people refuse to obey the voice of Samuel. And they're also dissolving the relationship with Samuel because, as we're going to see, when they get this king, the king's going to do one thing, and Samuel will tell him to do another thing, and he's just going to flat out just do whatever he wants to do. This is a very interesting character, our next one. So they're dissolving the relationship, because remember, Samuel is going to talk to them in chapter 10 about the relationship that he had between them. And he's going to talk about, but what did I do to you for you to dissolve this relationship that we have? Because remember, Samuel in the last chapter went from place to place, offering sacrifices and judging the people righteously. What did I do? Okay, he says, verse 20, that we may also be like all the nations and that our king may judge us. So they're you see, they're so flat out making,
yeah.
Okay. Verse 21, verse 20 said that our king may judge us and go before us and fight our battles. Oh, you lost your mind now. Y'all fight your battles, right? They're they took it a step further. You know what? Actually, since we're putting in our order and y'all's listening, we don't just want just a king. We want him to go before us and fight our battles. But Yah has gone before you. Yah has been. You think a man has been fighting your battles? Right? He's okay. So, and Samuel, so this verse is funny to me. And Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he rehearsed them in the ears of Yah, like Yah didn't hear. He went back and started praying. Did you hear what they said? And he's I know you heard it because you heard it. But Samuel was like, I need to say this to you, just in case you missed. Did you hear that? Have you heard? He was couldn't believe it. He was absolutely probably just taken aback. I'm old. I had to go all my life to these people, and this is the payment. And verse 22, and Yahuwah said unto Samuel, so consistent, hearken unto their voice and make them a king. And Samuel said unto the men of Israel, go ye every man into his own city. I almost cussed. He was like, y'all get out of here. Gone. Like, he was just done. It just ended, go ye every man to your own city. You guys need to go home. He was just like, I can't deal with this today. And so what happens in between verse chapter 8 and chapter 10, because chapter 10 is actually the pick back up of the story, we're going to get a character development of another character, and then we're going to get into them actually getting a king. So everything is just like going haywire. It was going good. They had just last week fasted. Remember that? They were, it wasn't just last week, but over the, just a week ago, they had just said, we're going to serve Yah, fight our battles. The Philistines are coming. They're going to overtake us. We're trusting Yah. All these empty promises. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah, we're done.
yeah, we're good. Give us a king. We want somebody else to fight our battles. And Yah's like, do it. He doesn't say anything. He's do it. Tell him what it's going to be like, but do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about I don't know if it was last week or the week before, how Yah will slick the path.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let you do exactly what you want to do, because if he doesn't, then you run the risk of, like we said, of the perversion of that pattern and of that system. I'm going to let you, because it shows who's Yah's and who is not. Because not everybody, when these things happen, I mean, the whole nation agrees, but there are always a remnant. So you're going to also see the remnant within the system as well. Not everybody goes along with this. But it's the same exact thing that happened with Mashiach. Where they're like, no, give us Barabbas. And he's like, and let the blood. See, it's like, why didn't you stop and give us Barabbas? Like, if I could just interject into like the future, into the past, I'm like, oh, wait. Right there, that's it. Good. Okay, give them Barabbas. He said, no, but they said, and then let the blood of Yahushua fall on us and our children. Why? Why? Like, see, so it's the same exact right. It's the same exact thing. You make these grand pleas to Yah, and then in the same breath, with the same borrowed breath, because it's borrowed. Like, how dare you? With your borrowed breath, the breath that you don't even have, it's not even yours. How dare you speak that against Yah in the same breath? They do it. And so Yah's like, literally the same exact situation. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. It's better for me to persecute this group than to have to kill everybody.
Right.
So give them what they're asking for, so that they can see the magnitude of what they're asking for. But then he always comes and cleans it up. Like, sometimes Yah just baffles me.
Just like a parent.
Like, you always come through, even after we just mess it all up.
Right.
Like, even after, because you're going to see, and I'll just give you this and we'll be done. Even after they ask for a king, Yah does something so interesting where he chooses this king, who the people even know, the king that he chooses even knows is not supposed to be king. He flat out says it. It's not supposed to be me. We're going to look at that next week. In Genesis, we know who the king is supposed to be. And, well, what tribe he comes from, at least. And he goes, it's not even me. But then Yah tries to work with the person that's not even supposed to be the person.
Wow.
It's like mind-blowing. Still working with these people, still being long-suffering. And so in this season, it's helped me to be a lot more patient with people. I have my youngest nephew was over last week, and Maury did Bible study the week before, and he dealt with the whole Christmas thing. And so the kids, I come in the room, and they have these papers that he had with like printouts of like, yeah, they're probably still down here. Yeah, this one. Is this one? Oh, that's not it.
It's this one.
Yeah, had these papers of like Krampus and Christmas, and they're all spread out over the floor of the kids' room. And I was like, why are these in here? So I'm up early. Mom gets up. She's like, you should have heard the conversation last night. So the kids decide that they're going to share with the other kids about what Christmas really is. I don't talk to my niece and nephew outside of what they bring up to me about what they do at home. I teach them what they learn here on Shabbat, but there's always that fine line of them never being able to come back. So I try to play it really safe. I'm being honest, because a lot of what they pick up is through exposure and through just being here, and not so much me teaching them. We live Torah. So the kids, So the next day, one was like, they're in the room and they're like, "This is what you're doing."
Oh,
And there, and she said, "Look at these demons. Look at these demons."
The little ones.
The little ones.
Mhm.
Ari in particular.
Ari.
She was. She was a teacher.
And my
Oh,
daddy is a pastor.
She said,
and
"My
he
daddy
can't
is
lie.
a preacher and he can't
Can't
lie."
lie.
And I'm telling you that this is what Christmas
This
is.
is worshiping
So
God.
I don't mention it at all. The kids wake up the next morning. My nephew comes over to me. He goes, "Auntie," he's hard. "Auntie, did you know this?" He's 5, mind you. And I said, "What?" He said, "These demons for Christmas." He said, and then she said, she said, when you put up a Christmas tree, this is what it is. And he said, "Well, I'm not the one that put up a Christmas tree. My dad did the whole thing."
Throw on the bus.
He said, and that's Ari said, when you put the balls on them too, you worshiping the demons. You putting the balls on the tree, and y'all say you're not supposed to put the balls on the tree. And he says, "I didn't put the balls on the tree. I didn't put the tree up. My daddy did it." So
that ain't me.
So he's like,
But looking at that idea of, and isn't that hilarious? And so in this time, I was thinking, I'm like, okay, Yah has a way of reaching the people that he wants to reach. Some people, the path is slick. They're moving right in the direction they're going, right? But for others, and how the Most High is interjecting into that space, we have to be, once again, like I say this every week, and I probably will say this probably till I die, we have to be careful. Because you don't know how the Most High is working things out. There are things that I can't explain. There are things that I can't say because they already have an idea based upon their previous experience of what I believe. But for some reason, they trust these kids. And the Most High has done that over and over again. Where he's like, you know what? Let the people that reject me. But I am hot on the pursuit of the ones that want me. I'm right on him. He doesn't give up.
Hallelujah.
He just doesn't. And time again and over again, he's pursuing and pursuing and pursuing and pursuing. Like we talked about before, he doesn't want to see anybody perish. That's not what he wants.
Right.
So in this time, prayerfully, more and more people will begin to see it, because I've over the past 6 or 7 years, it seems that because we keep doing the same things and nothing's changing, people are stopping wanting to be insane. It's very interesting. They're like, you know what, doing something over and over again, expecting different results is insanity,
Yeah.
right? And people are like, okay, no, I'm not going to do this. No, and I've seen people wake up, and it just takes a little bit. It just takes a little bit. And it might not mature when we see it happen. Like, my nephew probably will celebrate Christmas from now until the time he probably leaves home. But guess what? Something may stick with him. And so understanding the patience and having the heart of the Father for his people, and being patient and meeting people right where they are, doesn't mean entertaining what they entertain, but meeting them and being that constant. I know a lot of people who are saying, like, if it wasn't for just having a person say, you know what, the Most High is pulling me, can I talk to you about this? And you're like, I've been trying to talk to him. Sure. I'm here. Here's my ear. I'll listen. Because relationship is what Yah has been really, really showing through the situation, the relationship with him and his people. There's boundaries and sometimes there's distance, but at the same time, there's a constant door of opportunity to come in and be able to be rejoined back into fellowship with him. And that door of communication needs to always stay open.
Right.
Especially in this time where the path has been slicked. He's like, it is. So he's like, somebody might reach out and be like, hey, help me. Help. Immediately.
Grab my hand.
Right. Okay, so next week, Yah's providential care of his people. They asked for a king. He told them how the king's going to be. But even in the midst of that, he tries to win over that king, because he knows that at the end of the day, the people are the ones that are affected by the decisions of those in power. All right. Any questions? I should ask people online. Any questions?
We'll be reading 9.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You want to stay?
Huh?
What they say? Answer.
I can.
What do you say?
Well, what time is it?
1:30.
1:30. Oh, we actually stayed within our time frame. And the internet worked today. Yeah, barely. I had to bring the whole a cord running through the wall. Yeah. I'll answer them on the what's it called in the comments. This okay.